What's up guys, my name is Andy. This video is going to be a little bit different than what my normal format is. Normally I try to do some sort of install video and I do some editing to kind of cut out a lot of the boring stuff. But I've had a lot of comments from you guys asking for a little bit longer format video, or maybe it's just some more dialogue in there explaining some things or talking about some stuff as I'm doing it. And I figured, you know, while I'm here, I've got the car up on my quick jack system because I need to do something underneath it. And these are the kinds of fixes or mods or changes that they're by themselves, they're not that particularly exciting. Nobody really wants to see that stuff. And some of this stuff, you know, replacing some screws or something like that, that's not the best example, but nobody wants to see that. But what I've got, like, for example, you know, I need to put some, like a heat shield, this kind of a heat shield blanket thing, on my, the H-pipe of my exhaust system. The hydraulic line runs really close to it. It's probably fine, but as the summers gets a little hotter out here, I haven't run this setup in the summer yet, and I don't know if just the heat that's generated by the exhaust is gonna be too much. Then you take the ambient temperature out there, just all that, and if the car, you know, if you're in traffic, you're not going anywhere, all that heat, maybe it's too much for the hydraulic line. I don't know enough about that stuff, but for a couple of bucks, I can add a little bit of insurance or maybe take the edge off of that. So what I wanted to do is just wrap this around the exhaust, and I've got some of those metal, they're like a zip tie, but they're made for stuff like this to hold it in place. So like if you did a header wrap, these are the kind of things you would use to wrap that up. So I got to do that. And then on my fuel rail here, when I was doing all this and moving my carburetor to put the phenolic spacer in there and get everything ready so I could put this up higher in so that we'd use the scoop there, the T shape of the fuel line, you know, I'll show you this piece right here is, it's not the best for tapping a hole in here and putting in this fuel pressure gauge, which you could argue I don't need, but I like to have that to keep an eye on stuff. When I was moving stuff around, I think I might have cracked that housing, or I don't know, I had to take that fuel pressure gauge out of there and I put some of that fuel, you know, safe kind of goop on there to seal it up and throw that back in there. But the problem is this thing's a pretty thin piece, and when you put a hole in there and you tap it, it just, you know, it makes, the hole is huge for that. I think it's an 1/8 inch NPT is the size. So what I did is I just got another one of those T's, and then I got an adapter piece that has that 1/8 NPT thread in there, and this pretty beefy nut looking kind of thing that I can thread that on here like so. This can go to the carb, this can be the fuel inlet line from the fuel pump, and that way, you know, as I spin that fuel, you know, gauge, that pressure gauge in there, I'm not, you know, threading it too far and binding up and, you know, ruining the T. So again, by itself, not a big deal. I was just gonna fix it and just be done with it, but I thought, well, again, some of you guys have been asking for something where it's just a little more talking, a little bit longer format. I try to keep my stuff a little, you know, cut a little down so that it's not just a bunch of rambling, to try to make the video, because when you're looking to install, I don't know, headers or a starter or an alternator or shocks or whatever, you want the meat, right? You want the information to go in there and just do it, and you don't want a bunch of talking that just kind of fills up the video and makes it last longer. So again, this video is just kind of something that is just for the guys that just want more talking. And so anyways, so I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna get that header wrap thing done. I'm gonna put this on there and see if there's anything else that I need to do while I've got the car here. Just smaller little things, you know, like I've got a couple of fasteners. The fastener that's for the door pull, the passenger door on that handle in there, the screw it's not good, and so I don't know if the hole's too big. I don't know what's going on. So I bought a couple extra screws. I fixed that. Again, by themselves, these are not worthy of making a whole video and put a fancy title on it and music and everything. So anyways, guys, so let's just get in there and get to work on this car and just do some stuff that I need to do that I would have just done kind of on the side and off camera. So let's get started. All right, guys, so it's not the easiest to tell, but you can't really, this is not a good camera angle. Anyways, there's the clutch line right there, and it's not touching. I can get my finger between this pipe here and the hydraulic line, but it's close. It actually moves the line when I stick my finger there. So it's close enough that I don't know if it's going to cause an issue or not. I just want one of those little, kind of a security kind of an insurance on this, just to wrap around this section of the pipe and just isolate the heat a little bit from this hydraulic line. Here's that aluminized heat barrier, adhesive backed. I'm not wild about the adhesive back part because the glue in here will burn. Yeah, I don't. It'll smell for a while as the exhaust heats this up, but it's something that I can wrap this up and around the tubing there and just isolate the heat a little bit. Man, I'm not really looking forward to that part. I didn't pay attention that it was adhesive back. That's not what I wanted. Oh well, it was only, I think it was 15 bucks for this. So yeah, it's kind of sticky. Yeah, the reason why, because on my previous car I had a hydraulic, or the cable clutch, and I got something like this, and I tried to put it on the manifold header, the exhaust manifold, to insulate the heat from my cable clutch, and it just melted it anyways. But it was also, the cable was resting on the manifold, so I don't know if this would have done it anyways. But anyways, that smell of the burning glue from this stuff was just horrible. But that's okay. So we'll wrap this on there, and then we'll use these kind of zip tie, or rather, you just slide it in there and then you can bend it back, and there's a little ball bearing inside here that kind of grabs it, and it's hard to pull back out. So we'll just throw one on each end as we wrap it around there, and that should be good enough for what we need. Let's see here, pulling these guys out. So there's a little ball bearing inside there. It's kind of hard to see, but as you flip this around and you run that in there, it's difficult to pull back out because the ball gets caught inside this little ramp in here. So that will work for what we need. And I'm not going to cut this. I think the length is fine. This is a 12-inch square piece. So we'll just wrap it around there. And I think what I'll do is on the side where the hydraulic line is, I'll wrap this, try to wrap it like that. So it's almost like a double layer on the hydraulic line side. And that would just give us a little bit more heat protection from that line. So, all right, let's get down there. And actually, I might cut this down. The reason why, they've got these bends here in the tube, and trying to wrap this around there and fight with those bends might not be worth the effort. So I might just go ahead and cut this thing down. That might make it easier for us. So I'll probably do about that much right there. So cut that guy. What we want to do is cut a straight line, right? Put this on here. Like so. Let's see, how far is that? That's 4.5 inches. We'll just go over here and we'll cut this at 4.5 inches. There. And now we just cut a line between the two. Go. Just a little bit more. There. I guess then I got another piece if I need it for something else. And all right. All right. So before we take the plastic off, we can kind of get an idea. If we wrap this around there, and yeah. So it'll be something like that. That'll work. Again, the line, the important part is just protecting this line that's coming from here all the way up to here. And it leaves this O2 sensor bung open, which is great because I may want to do a wideband sensor down the road, and I don't have to mess with anything to get to that, which is fantastic. So I think we're probably safe to pull this adhesive off, or this plastic layer off, and let's give it a shot. Now, this is going to be a pain. Oh, that wasn't too bad. Okay. Alrighty, so again, we're double layered on the top edge, so it's again protecting that line. And it's probably, with this adhesive, it might be enough to just stick by itself, but I'm going to put those zip tie things on there just to ensure that we're not going to come unstuck. And I probably should run the car for a while afterwards and just burn all the glue off that's on here. All right, here's those cable tie things. Now, on something like this, I don't know if there's a, if it's better to put, like if we go this way versus this way, I don't think it matters. Wrapping around, I don't think it matters. So let's see here. This on here. Again, you just kind of pull it through like you do like a regular zip tie. And then there's a tool that you can get, what I don't have, but you can grab the end of this and you kind of spin it and it continues to tighten this down. But I'm just gonna use a pair of pliers because I don't have that tool with me. Actually, let's get this one and then get the other one installed, and then we'll... All right, same thing. I'll go the same direction so that it looks like we're trying. And just slide it in the end there, just like, a regular zip tie. As I pull this thing tight, make sure that we're still on top of the wrap. Okay, now I need to get those pliers and... All right, so if we take this and spin it this way, yeah, that pulled it pretty snug. Again, if I had that tool, that would be better, because then you don't bend things up when you're doing this, but... There. And then I believe you just bend these back, and then you can do that fatigue thing where you bend it back, back and forth, and it just fatigues it and breaks over time. So if we do something like this, let's see if this breaks it off. There we go, just like that. So that's kind of a sharp edge. I'm not really wild about that sticking out. I guess we could push this around like that. I don't know. It's not... Again, this is why I'm doing this video this way, because I don't have a lot of experience with these ties. And so I'm probably doing this wrong. And you guys are laughing, going, "Oh my gosh, Andy, you look silly doing it that way. Don't do it that way." But I'm doing this video probably be a couple weeks from the time I do it to the time it comes out. So by the time you guys see this video, I'll know if this works or not, if this continues to help protect that cable or the hydraulic line. All right, guys, so there it is. That's that strap on there. Man, that's just not very tight, but again, I probably need that tool to snug it up better. I got more of those, I got that whole package of these things, so I guess I could come back and redo this. But this is ultimately what I wanted to do. I wanted to just add a little bit of insulation on here just to help protect that hydraulic line. Who knows, it's probably not gonna do anything anyways. Okay, so I'm done with that. You'll notice that the camera, so I'm up on those quick jacks. I do get a lot of questions about why don't I use the quick jacks more when I get underneath the car. So I love the ground clearance that this creates, and I have a whole video on my review of the quick jack. This is still a fantastic system, and for those of us who don't have the space or the money to put in a full lift, this is a great compromise, but it's a compromise. You are limited to the amount of, I think it's almost 2 feet, 20 inches or something of ground clearance or whatever it was, which is great. But here on our car, this is a great example. You see how close these quick jacks are? The reason why is because, here, see this frame rail right here? I don't want to pick the car up on the pinch welds out there. A lot of people say you can. I don't want to do that. I want to pick it up by the frame rail. Well, because the frame rail on these cars are so inboard, I have to pitch these quick jacks in so far, because the back, and you can kind of see, maybe you can see here as we move it down the side of the car, the back of it's actually more underneath the where the front of the leaf springs attach, but this is so far inboard that it's kind of at an angle. Well, when it does that, this space in between here, I can barely fit a creeper through here. Let me see if I can do that real quick. If I can fit through here, yeah, there. I just don't have a lot of space, so it makes me a little claustrophobic, a little nervous to try to fit in there. And then because of that, it just limits the amount of work I can do in here, because I'm kind of pinched at that point now. Those things, they angle out towards the back, so there's a lot more room. It's just right here where it's tight. So I don't really like that. Oh, look at this. Guys, are you seeing this? Oh, that's awesome. Yay, now I get to deal with that. Okay. Anyway, so I don't like using these quick jacks, partly because of that, but most of the work is on the end of that car or on the front end of this car. I don't really do a lot of work in the middle, so it's not that big a deal. It's the setup time that bothers me the most with the quick jacks. So what I'm gonna do is I'll just do a real quick time lapse of putting the car down on the ground and taking the quick jacks out. It's much faster to put the car down than putting it up. The problem that I struggle with when I put it up in terms of time is that I have to position those quick jacks in the right spot. And again, they're angled like a V, closer in the front, wider in the rear, so that I could pick up the right points of the car. And you're back and forth trying to position it in place, hook up the hoses, put those little rubber pads underneath there to, support the car. I mean, if your car is gonna be up in the air and you need the kind of, you can see how high this car is. You need that kind of ground clearance. It's fantastic, but a lot of the stuff that I do is on the front or the rear of the car, where I just need to jack up the front or jack up the rear, because that's all I'm doing, and I don't need to set up this whole stuff. So again, I keep the quick jacks. I love them. I'd buy them again if I needed to, but for a lot of the work, just jack stands and a floor jack is sufficient. So yeah, let's do that little quick time lapse. Okay, I'm out of breath. I'll put the time up on the screen, how long that took. I wasn't timing it, but I figured out when I'm editing the video, I'll put it on there. So now I want to do that fuel adapter T-piece. This is that guy I was talking about before. So I want to unthread this setup, put this in its place, and it's really one of those things where by itself it's boring, nobody really cares about it, but while we're doing this, we'll just put this in there. And then I do want to point out, you don't put Teflon on these threads for a couple of reasons. One, the fuel will eat the Teflon. We don't want that. We don't want that chunks of Teflon in our fuel system at all. And then because of the style or these AN fittings, the way they've got these, I don't know what you call that shape that's on there, but the way these fit, when you thread them down and tighten it up, it's sealed. It's not going anywhere. And I haven't had any leaks from this setup. Nobody has leaks from this setup if you tighten it right. So we don't need Teflon tape for that. So let's go we'll get a towel, put it underneath here, and start unhooking stuff. All right, we'll just throw towels under here. I don't know how much fuel is going to be in this line. Probably enough to make a mess. So hopefully we can soak up enough of that. So I'm just going to undo this fuel line that's coming off of the fuel pump. We'll take that guy off. I wish I had a set of those AN wrenches. I don't like tearing up the anodized coating on these fittings, but it's one of those things where ideally you set it up and you never get back in here and you don't need those wrenches anymore, but looks like I could benefit from them now that I've done this a couple times. Alrighty, cool. Yeah, that's a little bit of fuel's coming out. Okay, now I want to take off this piece and this piece from this T-fitting here because we're going to replace that with a new one. I don't know what this rubber thing is for. It was on this fuel pressure gauge when I got it. I don't know if it's just to protect that little button there. Anyways, let's take this apart and I'll show you what I'm talking about with this thing. So here's that piece. If you look down inside there, you can see how the threaded part of this sticks inside the tube. And it doesn't go all the way to the bottom, which is great, but this is such a thin-walled system, and you know what, I probably should have, I should have taken this out when this was still in the car, because now this is going to be difficult to do. Hold on. Oh, this is not a good idea, but I'm not going to use this piece anymore, so there we go. Get this to thread off of there. Okay. So if you look at this is such a thin section in here and there, and if you just kind of look at around everything, it's just, I'm sure it's fine. Everybody this is something I bought from Summit. Everybody has these and probably nobody's had a problem with it. But when I was thinking with the carburetor, maybe I didn't have this in tight enough. I don't know, but it was leaking from these threads here. So I had to put some of this, you can see some of that blue goop on there. I forget what that stuff was. It was some gasket. Actually, yeah, this right here. Permashield gasket dressing and sealant, fuel resistant. This is what I used to throw that in there, and yeah, we're not going to do this anymore, but I want to put this in here, and then we'll put this in place like where this was sitting. If this is the carb is right here and the fuel line was coming in this way, right, we'll put this in there, and then we'll put that on there like so, and then we'll put the fuel line on this spot, and then Bob's your uncle. So, and these look like they're the same exact thing, even that kind of this T shape on here. Oh, they're similar. But now I don't have to worry about this thing being fragile because of how much of this has been cut out for the threads. But cool, let's get this in place in the car. So the first thing, put this guy in here, and we're just gonna sort of loosely thread things in place just so we can get it kind of mocked up, and then we'll go through and we'll tighten everything down and make it all permanent when we get closer here to the end. Okay, so then the downside with this is it's going to move this fuel line out a little bit farther. It's probably not going to be a big deal. It's only going to be sitting right about there. I was just worried that it would be sticking too far out and make it look dumb over here, but I think we're going to be fine. Okay, so put this guy in place. Now, one thing I do like about this thing is that I can clock this piece separate from here, depending on where things kind of fall out. If you want your gauge, well, let's see, if we want the gauge sitting like this, or maybe over here. And when the gauge was on this T-piece, you didn't have that option. You just had to stick it right there. So that's kind of fun, I guess, just to change it up a little bit, but okay, so let's see here. Let's thread this guy in, see what happens. Sorry about the camera. You can't really see what I'm doing with where the camera's sitting. So I already can tell that I'm going to have to thread this thing down more, because see, what I don't want is this bubble that's up here. When the needle is up in the bubble area, the needle bounces. And that's the whole point of having these fluid-filled gauges, is that it takes some of that bounce of the needle out and it smooths it out. And if we're gonna have this thing like so, I'd rather have because it's usually around, what, 4 to 6 pounds or something like that is where the stock fuel pump's supposed to run. So I want to at least clock this thing away so that this 4 to 6 range is not in that bubble. So let's see here, if we can turn this. Now, because it's an MPT thread, it's got a taper to it, and you can overdo it. And I don't want to overdo it. All right. See, this is good. See, now, see, the bubble is up here, but the needle's going to be sitting down there. That's actually what I want. So that's good. Hopefully that's in there tight enough, at least in terms of this. Now we can tighten up all 4 of these fittings and get this thing in its final resting place. Start with this guy over here. Alrighty, so I don't know what kind of torque settings you're supposed to have. I think these are tight enough. Oops, this way. There, I guess we'll find out when we fire it up if there's a leak. There. Okay, so pull this out. All right, guys, so there it is. That's the fix that I needed to do so that I didn't have that weak T section. It does move the line. See, it sticks out a little farther. I'm probably just being picky. That's not hurting anything. It's not getting in the way of something. I guess I could always take this down and cut off an extra inch of this line, and then it would just move it back inward if I wanted to do that. But that still works. And the important thing is in terms of positioning, I wanted the needle to be in the fluid part, not up here in the bubble. So that'll work. All right, win. So the next problem that I need to fix here is, you see how this door, see how the screw came out, and I don't know what's going on here. I was looking at this, it's not even the right screw that goes in here. It's got a socket head on it, not a Phillips head. Let's get that out and see if I can't find out what's going on with these. Okay. That's the right size. That's not even doing anything. Okay, so what I've got here is you know, one of these kinds of screws, metal screws, Phillips head. But the other side is a, it's a, look at that. It's got a, what is that? It's a 7/16 socket head on there. Man, that's a pretty beefy screw. So looking at these door panels, they're pretty chewed up. I wonder if this will even, I don't even know where this goes. Wow. I hate to see what it looks like behind here. There may be nothing back there. I wonder if I can get underneath here. Uh-oh, pulled that one out. Didn't mean to do that. I'm supposed to take these off, but I'm not. Oh my gosh, yeah, okay, so what I've got here, this is supposed to be in the door for the screw to thread in there, and it would work if it was in the right place, but this piece, oh, I see. I think I can fix this. Let me if I can move the camera and show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so we get back behind here, and this little metal piece, you can see the other one is right in there. So this piece sits this way inside the door. So if I could feed this, figure out how to get that in there, and then once it's in there, then I can screw the screw in here and it'll be fine. That's what I need to do. There, I got it in place. Just took a second. So it comes in from the back side, and you put these through, and then you kind of lift it up, and this slides on, you know, over the front of the door as you put it in there. But all right, I think that fixed that. Let's go ahead and see if we can put the armrest back on. First, let's get the door panel back in place. Line up these little clips and just push them in there. Oops. Uh-oh. Yeah, these things are made out of cardboard, and they're just, or pressed board or whatever. It's just cheap, but I guess it works. These all lined up first. There we go. Oh, of course. Gosh darn it. And these seats are almost kind of like a one-time deal, which sucks, because if you ever had to do anything in here that serviced this door, these little clips, I mean, well, these clips they're fine, but it's this press board thing just gets destroyed if you push on these things and the things are not lined up correctly, and like I'm doing right now, and it just destroys the cutout. Let's see, where is the, goes that way, okay. Oh my gosh, guys. So normally I would cut this stuff out and I would just do it right and be done with it, but because I'm trying to show more, I'm tearing up the door. It's just destroying this cardboard stuff. Anyways, these clips, you have to either go this way or they go this way or this way, but it depends, because where this clips onto the cardboard stuff, the press board, positions, you know, that could, you know, if the whole, you know, you have to be careful, so you have to put it in the right spot, and that's, hopefully I put these in the right spot when I was doing this, and that's not the problem that I'm having. Okay, so just again. Some of you guys are probably laughing, going, haha, I know exactly what that's like. I struggled with that same thing just last weekend, and Okay, I might not have one there. There. You know what? Annie's not gonna have one right here. I get an extra clip. Okay, let's go back to this part. So what I got, so here's the screw that came with the car, and then here's that huge, I don't know what was going on there. What I've got, I believe this is a number 14 1.5 long screw, and I believe that's what I got at the hardware store, and I believe that's what's gonna work to make this all line up and thread back into the door. So we know this one works, so let's put this guy in there. All right, with this one, oh yeah, now that's better. Okay, good, because before, when this screw wasn't going, I mean, it wasn't threaded in anything, and so when you pull on the door, it would just pull this thing off, and I'd have to hold the, close the door this way, or, okay, that's done, yay. So this is probably a good place to stop. I still have a couple other things I'd like to do, like for example, this line, or this wire for the temperature sensor probe for my electric fans. It's orange and it kind of stands out, and I want to do a black wire, but I can do that at a different time. It's little things like that, again, that just, I don't think anybody really wants to watch, but if I did a bunch of stuff and was just talking during it, then maybe, maybe you guys would be interested in that, but something I need to do. I'm also still trying to figure out, so with this setup here, you can see that I'm touching the scoop here. What's actually touching is this button that, that holds the threads down on this thing. And then just this ridge right here, you can actually see there's some paint that's on there. It's just touching, just every little bit. And when you close the hood, it doesn't touch, but because this motor pitches, when you're throttling through and that kind of stuff, and as this motor moves around, up and down, left, right, it just barely touches the scoop. So one of the things I did is I cut this down there. This had a little bit of a boss on the bottom of it. So I cut that shorter, and I don't think this is touching anymore, but I do know that this is still touching. I could do like a 1/2 inch phenolic spacer underneath there. I was thinking about doing that. I do have that one spacer there. I could take that out. The problem is if I take that out, then it makes the stud longer, and then this piece wouldn't work because this doesn't have a hole through it, like my wing nut that I had. So I'd have to either cut that shaft short that this threads onto, or leave that there, and I haven't decided what I want to do with that yet. But that's just something else I need to deal with. Little tiny things like that that you guys care or don't care on, that kind of stuff. That's what I'm trying to figure out. I did have a leak here on my oil sending unit. I had a little bit of oil splash on the filter, and then as I was checking around here, this was dirty. I wiped it off, but this had a little bit so I tightened this up. That's actually why I had the car jacked up on the quick jacks, is to check this out to see where the leak was coming from, if it was the oil pan or the filter or what was going on. And it was right around the base of this, and I don't think I had that threaded tight enough on there. So, but then because the car was lifted up, I figured, let's do that header wrap thing that I got back there. And another thing, again, people probably don't care. These little fasteners right here. So Wilwood sends Allen-headed fasteners, button head cap screws that go in there. And the downside is, one, this back one is underneath this lip, and that's hard to get to, but it takes an Allen wrench to do that. And I didn't like that. So I just got these are just, if I can take this off, it's just a fastener, it's just a socket head cap screw with these fasteners pressed onto them. And then that way, if you ever need to get in here and service this, it's just a thumb screw that you can undo, and you don't have to get a special tool. And because they're black, they kind of go well with this Wilwood setup instead of those, I don't know, they were chrome or stainless steel or whatever. I think they're stainless steel fasteners that were on there, but I like the looks of that. So something, just a heads up on that if you guys are looking to maybe change that up a little bit. That's what I had done here. So, okay, that's probably enough talking on this for now. So guys, that's the end of this kind of a non-standard video. Let me know what you think. I felt, while I was doing this, I felt part of it like I was just talking just to talk, trying to take up the space as I was putting something in or doing something. I felt to keep things entertaining, I would keep talking, and I didn't find myself coming up with anything good to say. I tried to think of something that would be helpful or beneficial, some additional information. This video wasn't planned out. This is just something that I was going to do this stuff. Like, you know what, let me grab the camera, film it, because again, some of you guys have been asking for something, a longer format, just more, you know, more Andy talking and explaining stuff. Maybe this scratches that itch, right? Maybe that takes care of that part. Maybe this was bad. Maybe you guys are thinking, no more of those, Andy. Go back to just cut the information, get it to us, and skip all of the talking. So let me know what you think. I think for today, this is a good spot. The wife's taking a nap, so I don't want to fire this up and check if this is going to leak or not. So I'm going to have to do it a little bit later. I don't want to wake her up, you know, happy wife, happy life, right? So we'll wait on that part. But and then I'll get a chance to see if that header wrap thing or that exhaust wrap thing does what I want it to do. Ultimately, it just takes some of that heat off that line is kind of what I was trying there. And you know, I'm looking at it right now, and there's a gap. Again, there's a finger width gap between there, and that may be enough. But it's the heat in the summer that I'm curious if that's going to be a problem for me. Let me know, you guys, if you have that same, you know, for you guys that have the hydraulic, that external slave cylinder on the side of the bell housing like I have, how'd you route your line? And did you go underneath the exhaust or what? Let me know how you did that, because we do have that, the line is a fixed length, right? They send us one length of line, and it's really the right length. It's just depending on how you route it. And in your exhaust, the downpipe or whatever you call that coming off your header, that collector piece, it's going to be different spots depending on the headers you have. If you have a 4-to-1 header, that system comes down farther, you may not have the room. So that may not be beneficial to some of you guys, but for me, I think it'll get the job done. So yeah, all right, I guess let me know what you think about this video, if this is dumb or if you just want some more of this stuff. I try to save my Thursday videos for the better video, you know, something that's, you know, better edited, better, put a little more time into coming up with a topic or something, and this one being just a lesser video. Maybe it's something you guys like, or maybe it's no more of those, so let me know. All right, guys, if you like the video, give me a thumbs up, and if you subscribe, I appreciate it because it helps my channel out, and we'll see you in the next one.